Galileo's law of falling bodies calculates the time in which an object will travel a certain distance in complete freefall. Distance, d, equals 16.8 times time in seconds squared. The South Tower was 1,362 feet tall. 1362 equals 16.08 times 84.7, or 9.2 seconds. The Twin Towers came down in nearly free fall speed.
You know, here's what we're talking about, guys. We have a 20-story building on the right that's going to be dropped by this crane, and a 20-story building on the left, which is also going to be dropped at the same instant. Now, who says that, and it has to crush the rest of the 80 stories below it? Who says the building on the right is going to fall, hit the ground first? Okay, most all of you. We're told that the laws of physics have changed on 9/11. On 9/11, they both hit the ground at the same time. That's what we're talking about. This is 6th grade physics. You don't have to be a scientist or an architect or an engineer to explain this to people. It's very, very simple. People will get this. The building on the left has to crush 80,000 tons of structural steel, which is designed to resist exactly that load, but it doesn't. It falls at free fall speed, meaning that each of those 47 immense core columns and 236 perimeter columns are doing absolutely nothing to slow the fall. We really have to get this because there's explanations out there with calculations that you and I will never understand from the official story, such as this ridiculous paper from Stefan that recently came out proving that it can fall at free fall speed. You just simply go back to high school physics, 6th grade physics, and say, no way. It's like two equally skilled runners. One has to run through nothing. The other has to run through 110 layers of, let's say, saran wrap. He's still going to slow him down a little bit. That's what we're talking about here. Let's look at it another way. Let's say we have toothpicks holding up these concrete slabs, and you somehow start a chain reaction by pulling the toothpicks. Well, one slab is going to come down and impact the other, and it's going to take some time, very little time perhaps, to transfer that momentum. Some say that it'll take 20, 30 seconds to transfer the momentum, even without any columns. It takes time to transfer the momentum of this impact. So these are laws of physics. Now, regarding this pile driver, which is the upper 20-story building, folks, it's not even there. It has shredded itself. You saw it shred half of itself in the earlier video. In all the videos, after 3 or 4 seconds, it's completely gone. And like in this photo, and you just have the building tearing itself apart at free fall speed. There's nothing driving this building down. Do we have squibs in this building?
In all the videos of the collapses, explosions can be seen bursting from the building 20 to 30 stories below the demolition wave. Here, 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 and here.
Now, these squibs were coming out, as you can see, 20, let's say, here's the jet plane impact in the case of the South Tower. 20 stories below, 40 stories below, even 60 stories below the point of jet plane impact. And so NIST tells us, well, of course, this pile driver, which we already showed you is not there anymore, is crushing this building. That air has to go somewhere, right? It's going to go down the elevator shaft, and it's going to come out the windows. Well, there's a few problems with this. First of all, the pile driver is not even there. Second of all, if that air was being pushed out, say the elevator shaft over there, and fill the room, right? This is open office planning, 60 feet across. It would fill the room fairly uniformly, right? And then kind of blow out several windows at once. Not just these highly focalized points of explosions exactly between the corners of the buildings. Those were also not air. They're pulverized building materials. So there's several problems with the answer coming from NIST about these squibs. And you have to think fairly critically about them.
And all...
Oh, plus, the squibs are coming out, and we've had the video, they're coming out at explosive speeds of 160 to 200 feet per minute. It's actually quite easy to calculate. So that these are not puffs of air traveling across the room and then squirting out. We have a 1,200-foot diameter of debris, and so this is evidence of a straight-down symmetrical collapse outside the footprint. And the material being injected at 55 miles an hour. Again, we have the videos. These things can be calculated. 20-ton steel beams. Here's the site plan of the World Trade Center, and here's the level of destruction. You can see Building 7 on the far right into a nice neat pile, a typical controlled demolition, whereas everything else from the World Trade Center 1 and 2 are blown outside the footprint, in fact, outside the ground zero. And as you can see, most of the steel is broken into its individual elements already ready for loading and shipment, with the exception, of course, of some of the prefabricated exterior columns, which we don't think they had access to the exterior columns. This would explain the excessive amount of energy, explosive energy required at the core of the building to not only blow the core and the floors, but to break apart those prefabricated panels of exterior columns. And so, of course, this leaves the building almost a crater, not a pile of floors. Now, these were 110 floors, an acre in size each, with 4-inch thick concrete. Where are they? There's no explanation as to why there's only a couple of stories of stuff found at the bottom. There's no pancakes. This is a 7-story lobby. It's only half full. And guess what it's full of? Not floors. The floors are not found. It's full of structural steel and aluminum cladding. These are floors resulting from a pancake collapse in an earthquake in Mexico. You tend to see the pancakes. Tom Patrizio, who brought these floor assemblies out to the site originally in the 60s, was there helping clean up the place, and he was looking for these floor panels. There were 6,000 of them. There's some stuff crumpled up, but go identify it as a floor deck if you can. I couldn't believe it. Not one floor panel. Is the steel skeleton broken up for shipment? Yeah. Perfect 30-foot lengths. Let's take a look at this molten iron that we've heard so much about. Do we have evidence? Well, the structural engineer, Leslie Robertson, is he a credible witness? As of 21 days after the attack, the fires were still burning and molten steel was still running. This is to a conference of structural engineers on October 5th, 2001. Joe O'Toole, a firefighter, remembers in February seeing a crane lifting a steel beam vertically from deep within the catacombs of Ground Zero. It was dripping with molten steel.
Mark Loiseau, the president of Controlled Demolition Incorporated, told the American Free Press that in the basements of the World Trade Center, where 47 central support columns connected to the bedrock, hot spots of literally molten steel were discovered more than a month after September 11th. These incredibly hot areas were found at the bottoms of the elevator shafts, down 7 basement levels. The molten steel was found 3, 4, and 5 weeks later when the rubble was being removed. He said that molten steel was also found at World Trade Center 7. The highest temperature was in the east corner of the South Tower, where a temperature of 1,377 degrees Fahrenheit was recorded. The molten steel in the basement was more than double that temperature.
So surface temperatures, 1,400 degrees. You can see A and B on the right. That's building 7. Very, very hot at the surface. It was melting the boots of the firefighters, they said. And Twin Towers below that also